Hello. All right. Let me check this out real quick. We should be going on YouTube live and on Twitch. It's been a while since I've been on Restream, so hopefully I'm coming across okay. One moment while I check this on my other browser. Hope everyone's having a wonderful day. Give people time to pile in here, hopefully. Apologies for the delay on today's show, which I will be doing solo. Unfortunately, decided to go with Restream instead of EV for today's show, and it's been a while since I've done Restream. Just testing here with the new browser. Hated to miss yesterday, but it was necessary. I'll let you know here in a minute. Just trying to see who we have here and chime into the chat. Have to jump through the hoops to get the title up and everything the way you want it. If you haven't hit that like button, you might consider that. Shadowhawk in the house, and Ryan, hello. I'm watching you over on Firefox. The comments anyway. Hello, and welcome to the 4 o'clock shadow. Thank you, Shadowhawk, for so rather just stream without me. Okay, cool. Have a great show, Shadowhawk says. Thanks for letting everybody know over on your channel. At least the problems I was having, which was I've been turning my computer off at night and hadn't been on the computer that much. Actually been doing other things, of course. Good news, I did get that very large piece of the hedge that was down, rotten piece, I guess, or whatever. Wind blew it down and it was still attached. So I got my little trusty hatchet out. I don't think it was so much the hatchet as it was bending it in another direction. And I can come on screen too. I think. What? Put the camera on and it goes blank. There we go. It just takes a minute. Computer might be cycling through a bunch of stuff. I don't know. I kind of like this all red icon up here. Sorry about yesterday. I'll show you what I finished off topicless. This pizza round that I did part of, didn't quite finish it. Some of these can take a while, and this is a new character, so it took a little while to finish and get it to where I kind of liked it, right? So hopefully that shows up pretty well on the camera. Although I could probably adjust my camera a little bit. It gets the brightness of the bulb there. This is streaming at its best, folks. There's an earthquake going on. I don't know. I did put a brighter bulb in here a while back. Maybe that's pretty good. So, new character. Don't have a name for him yet. Maybe I'll call him EV Mux. He mucks everything up. I don't know. Okay. Yeah. Check the chat here. Omer Glitch in the house. Hey, Omer. You should try Restream now. I am on Restream. Maybe they have fixed issues. I have been using Restream with my phone. Okay. I never had much of a problem with it. It's just with let me go back here. Didn't even look. Come on. See, if I would just stay on camera, I wouldn't have this problem. I'm watching myself. Oh, there we go. Just checking the potato cam. Don't have a link to even try. Oh, well. Sure, I can send the link. Yeah, that camera wasn't too bad on that piece. I know it's kind of a dark piece. I just wanted to see what it looked like on camera. And check the chat. If it's your particular phone, then has issues with Restream. Yeah, let me go over here. Of course, I have to grab the link in Chrome, copy, and go over to Firefox, another browser, see, just to see the stream. Usually I am not on camera. There you go. Yeah, I know you were talking to Shadow. Don't have a link to even try. Yeah, well, there it is in the chat. Yeah, it's crap trying two browsers. So day before, not okay. This gets confusing, right? Not yesterday, but the day before at night, my mom calls me. My mother calls me, and tells me I have some insurance papers to sign early the next morning. So that's what I and Abby did. I came back and did some updates on my pizza round, among other things, and we went to the store while we were out as well. And everything was going fine with Abby, and I think she's fine now. But before the show, a little bit before 2:00, it was almost 2 hours before the show. Oops, got a boop. Here we go. I'm trying. There we go. Hey, Shadowhawk. SH.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Hello. Yes, I can hear you. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Wow, this screen is weird.
Well, so am I. What's your point?
It keeps me. Yeah, it's just funny. No,
We'll see
what happens.
We'll see how long it keeps you in here. Usually it kicks you after about a couple minutes. See there? God, it doesn't work. It should. I mean, it works for others, but not so much on Shadowhawk. Anyway, sorry about that, buddy. You can try again if you want. It's crap, I know. But I did hear the boop. I usually don't hear the boop, even on StreamYard. Good to see everyone. Omer says, I hope it works for you, Shadow. Just checking the chat. Back and forth, back and forth. Yeah, I decided to go with the Restream. A little bit more familiar with that. I tried a couple tests, EV Mux, and by that time, we went to bed. I really should have let Abby out. I don't know if it had anything to do with it. I mean, definitely it was my fault. Her peeing the bed. But it's the way she peed the bed that alarmed me. It was like she was laying on her side. I don't know if she was in distress or anything. It didn't take very long. We were going to rest before the show, and she had been resting while I did the test on EV Mux, the new streaming service, and she had been resting in her little bed in the other room, and I came in here and did my thing. And then she eventually came and checked on me, and we went straight up to bed, which I was tired. I was really tired. In fact, I woke up at around 4, maybe 5 minutes after, and was really tired. That's when I sent the notice in the chat with the show that I'd set up, that there'd be no show. I was concerned about Abby. So a couple of hours before the show, she just kind of was on her side and did this stretch number, right? Where her whole body stiffened up, and to the point of where her head and nearly her front shoulders were hanging off. A good little bit was hanging off the bed. And I had warned her, I said, "You're going to go off the bed," something like that, right? And then I might have freaked her out at that point. She lost her bowels and peed the bed, which I had a towel right there on the bed. And I applied said towel and went and got another towel after that. And put her back on the bed, still in the laying position. And so that concerned me. I was wondering if she had some kind of heart attack or stroke, something, just something. But she seems to be back to her normal self after we rested. I was really tired myself, or I probably would have gotten a show in yesterday, but I was concerned after that about keeping an eye on her. So I thought better just to say that there was going to be no show. We stayed in bed. I stayed in bed for her sake longer than I normally would. I wanted her to rest. At some point, she got up and came laid down by me, like we normally do. And I comforted her, and she kind of finally laid down. She came, sit down by me, and I asked her to lay down for a minute, and she did. And we went from like about 2 o'clock in bed to about 10. So 8 hours, if my math is correct. Finally got up and let her out. Gave her a meal. I hadn't eaten anything all day, hardly, if at all. And I fixed myself something to eat. Called LZ very late and let him know kind of what was going on, because he had tried to call me. Tried to get in contact with my sister because she's a former nurse, retired nurse. Didn't get a hold of her. So I could, she had initially set up, which was a good sign. Not on her like sit up, but got from her side more erect, right? And I said, well, that's a good initial sign that she can maneuver. But it wasn't for very long. And then she, went back over on her side. And I said, well, at least she did that much. That's a good sign. So I said, let's rest. I'll keep an eye on her. Like I said, I was tired from what I've been doing. I did get in some yard work early this morning, which has been foggy and misty here. It gets, if it's foggy like conditions, it can get really foggy around my house because there's a low lying area. The land is sloped behind me, the old church property, which is now owned by the school, but the school's done nothing but train like new drivers, and they've owned it for about 5 or 6 years now, at least 5 years, probably 6 years, or going on 6 years. And they've not done anything with it, which is great. I mean, they've stored stuff while the football stadium was having new additions to it and everything. They had some very expensive generators out there, unguarded, which I thought was kind of foolish because people could come by and steal those things, but they didn't, apparently. People walk there. I wish the city would have bought the land and they would have made it a city park, because during COVID, they came out and walked their dogs, flew drones and kites. It's a nice little area. It's like 13.3 acres, I believe. There's only one building that they probably used for storage, that they left, the main sanctuary, which was only updated like a couple years before they tore it down in the interior. And the church was crazy for moving anyway. They had all the land that they could expand on, that they could use. They had chopped a bunch of huge trees down on the property, cleared it, which I don't know why they did that, really. You do all that just to sell the land. It really was an improvement. There were a couple of trees that were so big they were grown together, you could get underneath them very easily, and have a whole canopy if you were caught out in the rain, which I know Shadowhawk says don't get under a tree during a lightning storm. Check the chat real quick here. Mike Walters in the house. Hey, Mike. Yes, and thank you for all the prayers for Abby. She is getting older. I realize that. Sorry, Shadowhawk. I knew this wouldn't work for you. But apparently EV Mux didn't. I knew at least, you could come in for a minute or two on Restream. So, we'll look at options. Not very happy with StreamYard right now. My fault, I suppose. But anyway, yeah, my main concern yesterday was with Abby, and to make sure she was okay. We've rested a big portion of that time, and I was working on the pizza round off and on. Didn't like much to it, but I wanted to refine it and get it, the way it needed to be. And so I finished that one. I guess that can go in the pile back here. And it is a pile. Don't have very many pizza rounds left. Few, not very many. Been working a little bit before the show. I was writing some dialogue took a shower and let Abby out and turned the computer on, like I said, and it had to defrag and go, I didn't set it. It says hit escape or enter or whatever if you don't want it to run these tests. And it's like, I wasn't sitting here. I was letting her out and making a cup of coffee. So missed that one. And then it was taking longer, and I only had 20 minutes. Last time I looked at the clock, I said, oh, I'm going to be late. No one's going to receive if I can. I wanted to see, I think YouTube leaves up a stream if you don't go live on it only for so long, right? Is it 12 hours? I'm not sure. I was hoping the other stream and I would just pick it up where I renew it and go up and have everything set up. Of course, that's in a perfect, and that would have been through EV Mux the way I set it up yesterday. I'll still try and use, at this point, I don't know whether to at least take a look at EV Mux. Luke likes it. I know Omer doesn't like it. I do trust Omer, but on this, but I do want to kind of look at EV Mux and see what they're doing. I get the difference. Takes it straight to the studio. Which browser can yeah. Couldn't choose which browser. Yeah, Chrome is the browser, not the website. Yeah. Good to hear that Abby's okay. Yeah. She's doing back to her normal self, I guess. I made her some good meals yesterday. Man, I've got a recommendation, a non-recommendation. I don't even know where it picked it up, to tell you the truth. It was up in the cabinet. It wasn't that long ago since I bought it. I thought, oh, French's taco seasoning. It's the mild. I would hate to hear the hot. I can't do the hot stuff. I don't know. I've diluted it quite a bit. I put it with rice. And the way I did it in the oven, the turkey meat, I diluted it quite a bit, or tried to. It's a spicy meatball. It's French's taco seasoning, and it was supposed to be mild. I don't know. I won't be getting that again. It messes with me too much, and I'm still not done with all of it. I ate about half of it last night. Been doing some research. That's what I call it. And I think it's helped. It's helped me with the story of Ghost, particularly. There's also some other concept characters like the Observers. I hate to be cryptic, but I haven't worked all this out in my mind. Again, it goes back to a theme I keep repeating and going back to, which is a good sign. I went back to this thing I'm trying to refine in my mind with several different characters. But Ghost character, and I don't know where it exactly fits in. I think the way it's looking, and I don't know initially if he'll be in a Nora Gray story, but I think that he will be. Of course, he's one of the 43. If you don't know what the 43 is, it's a Nazi super experiment. Very quick definition of it that went wrong, that transported all these characters through time. Now, this is linked in with another character, and I don't want to give it all away, that through another character. Okay, so you have two characters. You have the mastermind, let's say, that's kind of directing. I gave it away, didn't I? The director. Anyway, shouldn't have named him the director, right? But he's kind of directing things, and he's using one of the 43. And I'll even tell you who the 43rd person is. At this point, I've not drawn her. She's more of a concept, and maybe I shouldn't say anything because Ryan's listening, and Ryan's like, "Ooh, let me try my hand at him." And you know what? I like to create my characters, their looks. And actually, Dreamer was on the original 43, I guess you could say. There was a female figure headed away. You could see her back, her bum, right? As the English say, her ass, her bum. And I kind of put lightning discharge or energy discharge coming off of her. But the character is called the Dreamer, and she's connected with all the other 43 characters. 200 went in, 43 came out. What makes them individuals? Individually powered with different powers. They were kind of selected and had individual treatments. So that's why Stone is turned to stone, and the Dreamer has her powers. And they did like cognitive experiments with Dreamer, and I mean there was just different things that they tried. Throw everything up against the wall and see what happens. And yeah, so I think we had some very exciting villains and female villainesses coming down. That was the main thing of doing. I needed more women. I needed more villains. And I've already said, and it was kind of my little thing to wokeism, that Devil Flyer is a former Nazi, a German, I should say. If you say Nazis are bad, all Germans are bad. Yes, Nazis are bad, but there were people just trying to survive. There was the hardcore believers, and there was the ones that were kind of shunted in. You can't, and isn't that what wokeism is about, right? Okay, all white people are bad, all black people are bad, all Asian people are bad, all brown people, sorry, Elmer, are bad. You should try EV Mux if it works for you in Shadow for at least the 2 free hours per day. I think it's 2 free hours per day, something like that. Yeah. Yeah. I realize we only go about 2 hours anyway, most of the time, now anyway, so that might work out good. I just want to make sure, and I may not have sent Elsie and, Shadow. I tried with LZ because he was home earlier on that first test, which didn't work. I think it might be the way I invite guests. But anyway, back on topic of the Momentum Universe, which I can always talk about. As I create these new characters, they're giving me new possibilities for stories, right? Because they have certain power sets. So the creation, and I got away from that a while. I was doing development work, on the campaign and working with artists and stuff, of course, all last year, and working my nighttime job and working with Omer quite heavily on the campaign, as he well knows, to sort of renew that and everything. Even had a soft sell relaunch over on Red Valkyries in last March. And where she cosplayed Midnight, a character I'm excited about. I did a lot of development on her last year, and I am in talks with Mike Gustovich about doing both those covers. At some point, I had to pull the trigger on a couple covers that Russ Leach said that he would do for me. He may be much like on this campaign, Jimmy Reyes was our sort of special artist. Not that Dillard or that my friend John Falandes are not special people, but a heavy hitter, I suppose you could say. And Russ is a great artist. I considered him for the Midnight covers. I thought, it would be really cool if I could draw Mike Gustovich in to do something. And Midnight's been kind of brouhahaing, right? Brewing in the background. There's still a lot to be done on her, but her origin story needs to be told, and is exciting to me. My first Western character, and I've created others like Morgan since then. But where all this fits in, I don't know. My main priority is, of course, getting Devil Flyer out and going on to the John Buscema quick campaign, which will probably run on all 3 platforms. The unseen artwork of John Buscema that I and LZ are contributing to, and Glenn Fleming will be designing from my files. Been holding off on because I kind of want to pair up the right projects with the right artist. At some point, I would like to do another Ashcan. Really enjoyed doing the first one, and would like to do some quicker campaigns and get some more stuff out there. And I think this Buscema one that I'm sort of shunting in there that we need to do, and there's a Jack Adler book we'd like to do. And if this this next campaign does well, I think it'll be some passive income, and it will. We will do a further larger edition on John Buscema. We have enough to do a very large book with. We're going to do a smaller book, sort of a test book, see if the hunger is out there for a larger volume. I'm pretty confident there is, but this is a good way to get to frankly have at least a 5-figure campaign, so that we can do more stuff. On this project, Devil Flyer, I put together the stories that I had the most development on, because there's Sea Demon story, there was a werewolf story, Second Skin, if you remember. There was some of them made it into the book, some of them didn't, like the crawl space story, what I consider the crawl space story, with the sort of my wraith, sort of my character, ghost character, although now I have a character called Ghost. My wraith, like Venom type character. What if Venom was a ghost, a wraith, and created Dirty Joe? Everybody seems to like that name. Placement of the characters, like Nora Gray, which I'm been excited about mostly. Sort of a detective in sneakers. But I think she works better and she will time travel, just like Midnight will time travel. I think Nora Gray will be better used in the 30s and 40s. I've revealed at some point I want her to become immortal. Does that mean that she can't be killed? Interesting. I don't know. I just don't want her to age. And I'm not about to kill off my number one detective character and one of my rare female characters, you know. I'm trying to create more sexy females. That's why I don't want her to age. I want her to be the smart young detective. You can always do a aged up what if story or something. The possibilities are endless. I tried to set up the Momentum universe like that. Right now, it's all scrambled. It's a jumble. There are ripple effects to an action directly tied to Devil Flyer, which seems to become my flagship character. And I think he works better as a flagship character than, say, Bog would, which was my first intentioned character to be published, but didn't work out that way. But he's in a very good story in a very good place in the Momentum universe. At some point, and I am thinking about the origin of Bog, and we do have a preview of 3 pages of the origin of Bog. Now, what part of that origin is related to him? I think I'm getting that in perspective than what I initially thought. I'm always thinking about things, trying to tweak them, make them better, make them more in depth, but not so in depth that you can't keep up with it. Let me just check the chat here. The Ninja Jinko in the house, cuckoo. Hello. Just tried to create an account again and not sure if it went through or not, says Shadowhawk. It's a weird site. It keeps taking me to create a project immediately after I try to register. Maybe I'm in. Well, maybe, the thing of it is, just checking the chat here. What is it, Restream or EVMux? You should try EVMux. Let's see. No, it's wokeism. It's not wokeism. Okay. I tried it out yesterday and it wouldn't let me log in. Yeah, that's EVMux. And created an account, kept jumping back to sign in or start over. Yeah. All Rexes are bad? In what universe, Omer? All blackbirds are bad? Wow. Omer cannot help but talk smack. I don't know what it is. He's on this bent to be entertaining 24/7. Control yourself. You don't, but I don't need an account to jump on the stream as far as I know. Yeah, it's wish there was a window in your forehead so I could see the wheels turn. Yeah. Yeah, Ryan is. It would be a trip, that's for sure. I quit until you come back. The Hump Day Show, quid pro quo. Okay. You quit what? What are you quitting? Yeah, I didn't go on the Hump Day Show last night, even though I knew Abby was okay. Like I said, we slept for 8 hours. I kept readjusting. There were about 4 or 5 different things that came to me that I wrote down. There for a while, I was just laying in bed and cycling these things through my head to make sure that I had them because I didn't want to disturb Abby. I wanted her to rest as long as possible. And then at some point, I said, hey, you want to get up? And, because I'd laid there long enough, it's like I'm ready to ready to get up and go. We'd been down on our backs for a while, and I was ready to get up. Tip for tap of a guy. Nuts if you looked in it. Yeah, maybe. Might be a mind trip. Tomorrow, Art Glitch giveaway. There you go, over on his channel. That's cool. Evie Mux, yeah. You were talking about all Nazis being bad, and so on. I was joking about, like you were talking about, how all things being bad, you are too behind on the chat. Never mind. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, all this, I mean, there's a lot of propaganda. That's what and there's always been a propaganda out there. We, growing up insulated, I mean, I'm just a few miles from where I grew up. Lived here, I would say all my life, but there was a couple of years that I lived outside of town, but not that far out of town, in another town in Truman, second wife and all that time period in the 90s, mid 90s, say 93 to sort of mid 90s. And then I moved back, but I digress. Yeah, I don't want to get into the Nazi thing. I haven't quite worked out everything, as Ryan says, or has said. But yeah, a lot of it I've figured out, and we've come a long way. I figured up enough for now. It's almost like a falling man off a building, and the person asking from the window, how's things going? And he says, things are going all right so far. He hasn't hit. It's almost like I'm a falling man, and actually there's a character that I want to do, or this concept of falling, a character called the Falling Man. I haven't done anything with that except kind of muse on that, think on that, write a few notes about it. I was thinking about, that's the way I kind of wanted to start Geo's story, to work him in. Because I like, there's certain characters you like to work with and draw more than others. Bog, of course, being one for me. People kind of give me hell because I don't want to draw Devil Flyer all the time. He was one character out of many. I think he works. I think he works well. I think he's a great flagship character. As I was saying to Shadowhawk the other day, Hawkman was one of my favorite when it was in a very little scene, very little known. And I don't know if it's available on YouTube. A lot of those early Filmation cartoons are, but the Filmation cartoon, which was in a cycle of sort of DC characters that was done, Superman, Justice League, new Teen Titans at that time, the original Teen Titans. I liked them all, but I really liked Hawkman. And one reason, he had kind of a Wolverine claw, or a hawk's claw on one hand, that he could fire, which is only in the cartoon. He could batter, fire energy blasts from, but he could also use it as a claw to rake open a door or something. I haven't seen all of those. I do remember on rewatch some of those cartoons. But yeah, a good winged character like Devil Flyer, there's considerations like this icon here. You see his wings look like they're made up of fire. Of course, he didn't start out that way. It was going to be like, I'm one to kind of go against type. with characters. I was getting some feedback from people going, well, why, if he's devil, then it has to be fire and all that. And so with the story, the cover that John Dillard did here of the character, we leaned into that with the burgundies and red and all that. Now, are his wings actual wings, or are they kind of like depicted here on this icon, just kind of like fire laden? In a color book with a good colorist like John Dillard, there you go. You can have it, and it looks like this. Black and white, not so much. Still haven't figured out whether I just want him to have like energy wings, or if at some point I want him to be kind of a rotating power type thing. I don't know. I've been working on the Devil Flyer story. Much of the sort of like where we're headed, the ending that Ryan did a cover for. A lot of the start of Devil Flyer is tied in with the ending of the story. It's circular. We are talking some catastrophic event happening here that is affecting everything in the universe. At some point, like I said, I would like the Eiffel Tower in New York and the Statue of Liberty in France. There are visible differences to this world. Mount Rushmore might be in California. You know what I'm saying? I want there to be indications to the viewer just visually without saying anything along the breadcrumb trail, right? For the reader that things are off in this world. Will they remain that way? For the foreseeable future, yes. I don't want it to get too weird that it's out of touch, I set Devil Flyer, much like Spider-Man is in New York, Devil Flyer is in Chicago, modern day Chicago. Although, like I said, all the stories are set in the recent past and we're leading up to the present. And then at the conclusion of all these stories with Devil Flyer and the backup stories with the characters that are eventually rolled in to Devil Flyer into one story. That's the plan. Start out with 6 stories, then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, like a countdown to the climax. And the title becomes just the Devil Flyer story in his own magazine or comic magazine. Or do we remain magazine size? I kind of like that ideal. I wouldn't mind going to Golden Age size, but that doesn't work with everybody's collection. Even though you might have a board and bag, it's like placement of it. Even though you might even come out with produce a comic book box like Alterna did and a few other people on campaigns, there's no guarantee that everybody will buy that box, and have a place to put it. And then you've only got one book in a big old box, unless it's one of those adjustable boxes where you can fill it up as much as you need or as least amount as you do. It's just, I want it to work well with people's collections. I'm not even sure magazines work. How many of you out there have a magazine box? I do. I've got from slabbed, graded boxes. Not a lot of them. I think I have 2 or 3 of those. I have magazine boxes. Not a lot of them. 3 or 4. Somewhere in there. My long boxes will accommodate some Golden Age. Silver Age and Modern Age, not a problem. Although there are multiple sizes, at least a couple different sizes in the Silver Age. If it's early Silver Age, early 60s, it's going to be larger book. in size than what the latter Silver Age became. Looking at different books in Golden Age, I've discussed this before. Golden Age books are not all uniform either. I've seen Golden Age books, just thinking of a Golden Age book as a larger comic book size, a little bit smaller than a magazine, is wrong. There are Golden Age books, depends on the publisher, that I've seen that are just modern age size, which is not very big at all. What, 8.5 by 11, whatever it is. Check the chat. Elsie in the house. Hey, Elsie. Later, Omer. Take care. I hope your dog gets better and you find some good rest. Yeah, I was taco seasoning and everything was messing with me. Remember tomorrow at Art Glitch giveaway, 2 p.m. Central. I can't highlight it because it's on another browser. It's been a while since I've used Restream anyway about doing that. I think I can. I don't even think I have chat brought up in Restream. Now might be a good time to look, huh? Have icons. There's people. What is this? There's chat. There we go. There's chat. Yes. And through that, I should be able to, what? I hit it. Should be show. There we go. See, it's up there. There we go. Yeah. It's strange. You click on it to show it, but it says hide and has an eye symbol with the slash to it. It's crazy. But yes, I can, now that I brought it up, now that I know the chat symbol, it's just a matter of working it all out. Anyway, this was not going to be a chatty chat. You can chat and say whatever you want out there, but I mean a highlight chat. So if you were hoping to come in here and get your chat looked at, sorry. I knew this was going to be a janky stream to begin with. My main concern has been for Abby's health and that she was okay. I did not know if I was going to have to go to that hospital early this morning with her or not yesterday. I was that concerned about her. She may have been upset. There might have been something there initially. I don't think she was paralyzed. I might have freaked her out when she started to pee the bed, of course, and I sort of like, yelled, whatever. It was like, oh, no, this is whatever I said. Join me tomorrow for the real 4 o'clock shadow, only on Shadowhawk Talks. Okay. Really? Okay. Well, I'll be over here trying to work out things for us over here. Buddy. But yeah, it was, there will be a 4 o'clock shadow tomorrow. I'll set it up. I'm going to try and set it up through EV Mux. Let's don't give up on that yet. I will probably do a stream with EV Mux tonight. LZ, if you're available, Shadow will be going to sleep. But if you're available, I will try and send out another invite and work out the bugs and see how that's going to work. I will be getting some more free hours, but it's on the 2nd of February. I've been contacting my accountant, and that could expedite things on getting some of the stuff published. So I've been talking to my accountant, my former accountant, which is now my accountant, because I've been using H&R Block and I haven't been happy with them. Tax time rolling around again. So I want to be able to get it in February if I can. I haven't dropped that on her yet, but she has agreed to take me on as a client again. She stopped doing that type of work. I don't know when she went back to it. I think she stopped for a little while, and that was there were some health issues there for her. That she's in her 30s and having heart problems. Very stressful, working too hard, and 4 children at the time. So stressful job. Stress will kill you. A kid. Oh, you kid. Okay. I can tell you there's a Shadow Kiss story scheduled, which has come along through the creation of Anthropy, which will also be in there. Hey, Janet. There is a midnight story, an old lady midnight story. The Young Midnight will be in that 2-issue sideways issues. They'll be turned sideways. So the staples, the binding will be up at top of the book. You've seen some sideways issues. I think that works well with the landscape, with the portrait of. I think that will work well with the sort of portrait, side by side. But I've been thinking back covers of late, not only for John Dillard's book, which Tank initially was going to do that, but he hasn't done it. So, and I really wasn't happy with that solution anyway. I want all the books to look different. So he wound up doing the back cover for John Philande's Golden Age cover, which is up on the campaign. There's also a sideways issue that I want to do, and I've talked to John Philandes. I need to talk to him, who is the artist on the Devil Flyer story, amongst other things. I have not talked to him. He's been having some health issues. About the tenants, I'd asked him initially to do me a cover, which would be a sideways cover. You would have to open it up to see the top and the logo on the back cover, right? Do I have a book here? I think you get it. Here we go. Here's a coverless book in the old world's finest. So say this splash page here is the cover, and still has the back ad to it. How about that? So you'd open it up, and the logo would be here, and this would all be the cover there, because it's a sideways issue that you will read. The whole artwork will be sideways inside of it. Doing something innovative with the cover, though, where the top of the cover, the front cover, is on the back And this would be your cover like this. And this would show you the building on the story of the tenants, an old brownstone building. Basically, the premise behind that is everyone in the building has developed superpowers. The midnight, I'd like to do sideways too. The interiors would be done, landscape wise on the tenants. But if you wanted to do like a 2-page, say, show the interior of the building, you could, and all the rooms, staircases, whatever. So I'm always thinking about that. And then also there's one comic book that I would like to send in a tube. There's the accordion ideal. I want to challenge what is a comic book? Does it necessarily have to have a binding? Does it have to be in this format, this rectangular format? It's still in rectangular format that way. This is just the most economic way, and I think it works best for the story on the Midnight Story and then also the tenant story. But there's eventually, I hope to challenge your ideal about what can be a comic book. I want to mess with the format. I want to make some neat stuff. Are all of them not going to be this way? No, we'll do a lot this way. Okay. Your standard comic book. But there are some projects that I would like to do in the accordion or in the tubular ideal I have, which would, I don't know if that would cut down on shipping or not, but it would be neat to receive a comic book in a tube. It's not for just that innovation alone. It's to innovate the format, and challenge people within this community, whoever, what can be a comic book. Maybe you need a special display. I don't know. Does that stuff sell right? I'm hoping with this next Buscema book and possibly another one, and then maybe the Jack Adler book, those can be, especially the 2 Buscema books, could be a cash cow, at least for the foreseeable future, of where we could do anything we want to, have a little bit of financial freedom at this point. We don't have that yet, sadly, but yeah, momentum's going forward, and we're going to be doing some innovative stuff down the line, but that takes planning. And the planning is going on right now. It always has been. I could say I've had years to think about this, and that would be true, but it's been the more recent years. It's not been, the crowdfunding has made a lot of dreams come true and possible. A lot of concepts that might have been dismissed are now repicked up, There's nothing wrong, Raw and T says, with your television set. Do not attempt to adjust the picture. We are controlling the transmission. If you wish to make it louder, we will bring up the volume. Yes, sorry to say I missed Biblo books. Okay, what does that mean, Biblo books, in your mind? Chick tracts was one thing that I was selling. Sort of your, not quite checkbook size, but at some point I'd like to do a checkbook size book, which is nothing new. I've got one, a Twilight Zone, near mint condition, like checkbook size book, where the staples are on one side, Those things go back to my childhood, to the 60s or 70s. There's nothing new. I have one Minnie Mouse or Mickey Mouse in both. I know Minnie's Mouse is in it. Maybe a Minnie Mouse book from the 40s. That's checkbook size. They had penny comics. They had nickel comics. Of course, most of them were dime comics. The nickel comics with Bullet Man and Bullet Girl and all that sort of failed. You know, they found out that they couldn't make it for that amount of money. They had to charge a dime. But there were little penny comics that Overstreet, up to a decade or so ago, would not even acknowledge. And yet I had a friend that sold me a lot of my collection today. Key Comics, Robert, he had some examples of penny comics. Now I think Overstreet acknowledges that, yes, some of those type of little books, which aren't very big, were made. There's still other things that sometimes Overstreet runs interference. Their word is law, and they're kind of the standard somewhat, right, for the hobby. They, in the 80s, 90s, early 90s, they came up with the Overstreet Update magazine that came out every month. To be more current, they were trying to compete with magazines like Fan, Hero, Wizard, of course. None of them lasted as long as Wizard. I picked up a few back in the day and still have a few from back in the day of those Overstreet magazines. Not very many, but I did pick up a few when that type of stuff was still coming out on the stands and in spinner racks. It was magazine size, so it didn't come out with spinner racks, but it still came with the magazines, when they had that type of distribution. One of the saddest things is that the spinner rack and the distribution system that had been there for decades disappeared. You can't go into a pharmacy and see a spinner rack or some magazine. Most of the magazines you see are like in a grocery section. Groceries were a great place, but the only comics you see nowadays, besides these DC stands that are popping up in different retailer type things. I got these at Dollar Tree, 2 different Dollar Trees, but I've heard they're in other places like maybe truck stops, convenience type stores, bodegas. I don't know where they're all popping up. Unfortunately, all this is reprint stuff, and it's probably pretty much worthless reprint stuff, but I can't say that. How rare is it? It may be rare. It may not be rare. I don't know what the print runs is on that stuff. I know they're hard to find, but is there going to be a hunger for what they're putting out? They're not protecting the books very well, so they're getting, messed up. Hey, Mrs. G. Sorry, I didn't see above Raul there, or I did and then didn't know it was you. Circle K has DC stands. See, I don't think we have a Circle K around here. Andy next door, I got his mail last night, and he had one item in there because I've been keeping it cleaned out. They close out on the house. His friend does at the end of the month. He had one thing in there, and it was about renewing his Costco membership. We don't even have a Costco here, as far as I know. We do have some membership things like Sam's. There's one or two others, but I don't think we have a Costco yet. I think they might be thinking about a Costco or some thing. they've been doing some mass expansion around here in a couple different areas, out there by the university and out there towards where I grew up. Circle K is a local gas station. Yeah, we don't have Circle K here. But I am aware of Circle K. But I will be doing some kind of broadcast tonight to try and test out EV Mux again. I think you get your invites, and maybe that's just a route, one route of two that you can take to get people on, is send invites to their Gmail, to their email, whatever, their Hotmail, whatever they use, their MailChimp, whatever. But I'll be doing a stream sometime tonight. After this one, to test out EV Mux again and try and get at least Elsie on, maybe a hanging with my homie or something. But I'm reticent to title it that if he can't come in. You got to have a homie there with you to do that show, right? It's not too late. I'll try and get in. Okay. Yeah, if I do it immediately after this show, or I don't know what I've got planned. I don't know. I am glad I got the hedge piece out front where they can pick it up. I know it's not too big, and it was a big piece of that hedge that came down, and it's just been laying there, and then the leaves kind of collecting around the top of it, being blown there and collecting. I've done some work out front, and I brought the can around back. Most of my trash can is not trash. It's limbs. I have some very big trees. All my trees, the tree right here is 5 or 6 stories tall. Pine tree. It's huge. Well over 100 years old. All my trees here. There's a cypress, huge cypress. A couple of oaks, big oak, and one on my back patio there closest, which is my shade tree, is an ash tree. There's also an old pear tree. There was a young cherry tree when I came here a decade or so ago, but I chopped it down. It was just going to be a nuisance, and dug up the root. Didn't want it to be in between. Didn't want it to be there. I'm told from the neighbor, one of the neighbors back when, because this neighbor behind me off to the side in his house is turned sideways. His backyard is like his side yard, however you want to look at it. They've been here for maybe going on close to 50 years now. I can't remember if he said 30 or 40 years. They've been here. They've been here a while. Okay? Decades. Whatever it is. I don't really talk to him because of the way he first talked to me. Yeah. He's not that personable a guy. That being said, he keeps to his own, and pretty much, he didn't know me when it came in, but when I was first cleaning up the property, it had been sitting for months, so it needed some yard cleanup. I was cleaning up with a friend of mine at the time, who sadly passed away since then. I met his sister, who's at Walmart. That was who I met at Walmart when I went to get bread. I and Abby got out yesterday. We're going to go tonight over to Mom's, check on her. It's good to get her out. I think her being more active helps her heart. Been pretty consistent on giving her medicine on time. You have to give it to her every 12 hours. I still trying to find a good time. Do I do it? If I do it like at 4, right before the broadcast, then that means 4 a.m. I need to be up. And usually I'm up, but I don't want to set it at that time. Noon's pretty good, I guess. I'm up and about usually by noon. Noon would be a good point. And midnight, I'm usually up at midnight. It's not an exact science with that. I think her hacking's gotten better. That's why I was frankly surprised about her sort of stiffening up, and that caught me totally unaware. Her stiffening up and losing her urine that way. And her, I wouldn't say be unresponsive, but she was in distress. So I don't know what was going on, you know. Like I said, I didn't know if I was going to have to go to the vet early this morning or not. Didn't really know till late last night after we got up past 10 o'clock because I knew she had come over to me and then laid by me. But I didn't know, you know, really till we got up and moving, and she's like, you know, doing fairly well, like her normal self. Excited, you know, wanting something like, hey, you got another treat for me or something. She can't speak, so she barely barks. You know, her bark has gotten so weak. But somebody asked me recently, I guess it was Tuesday, when I went to get my haircut, how old she was. And I said 80. I think I figured it up. She'd be 80 years old at this point in dog years. She surpassed me. 13 years old. The 26th of January, I will have had her for 13 years. I got her when she was 3 months old, fully grown. She's filled out. She's gotten bigger. People say she's overweight and fat. No. When I go and take her, she might be a pound over her weight. That's not a lot. Her neck has gotten thicker recently in the recent 6 months or so because her collar barely fits her anymore. I'm going to have to get a new collar. I knew I was going to have to get a new collar. I don't want to break away. At this point, though, she's not like charging the line like, say, a squirrel or another dog. And I don't know that she would break away on a breakaway, but I've had her do that. And I don't want her to get lost or out somewhere, right? Chasing after something. Plus, we had a killer dog. I forget what breed, but Elsie said that dog goes around a corner, lies in wait, and then pounces. That's their nature. So I don't want her getting killed that way. You know? I mean, this dog is huge. It's as big or larger than a St. Bernard's, which is a pretty big dog. It's bigger than a St. Bernard's. She's built like a Jack Russell. She's thick, not fat. Right. And she's getting thicker, you know. But I had her checked out, and I'm thinking, man, I hope it's not like last year where I have vet bills. Because that whole trip to Atlanta paid for her to be declared healthy, or as healthy as she's going to be. Had that tumor removed off her belly surgically. Had all her organs checked and everything. She does have that hacking, which is due to her heart, which she's taking medicine for twice a day. She's as good as she's going to get, for as to be 80 years old. She's still pretty spry and, gets around good and has overall healthy mentality. I've been trying to feed her as healthy as I know how to do and can. Fortunately, some softer meals at Aldi are 69 cents again. I think that's where they started out. They climbed and climbed and climbed up to, now they did change the brand. This is more like potted meat, what they're carrying in Aldi now. I have given her some hard food. For her, she needs a soft food though. She responds better than that. Cherry gave me years ago, but if it's a dry dog food, most dry dog foods have no nutrition. It's baked out of them. That's why it can stay on the shelf for years and not go bad. It's been sterilized. It'll fill their belly, but it won't do them any nutritional. It's just working their bowels. It's like me giving her white bread. A dog's digestive system is quicker. It doesn't stay in the body like it does for us for 8 hours, where we can break it all down and get the nutrition out of it. It vacates their system quicker. I know I used to sell dog food, amongst other things. I've had very many jobs, and selling dog food was one of them. And I've learned about dog food since then. But never stop learning, right? That's my motto, or one of my mottos. Never stop learning. It's fun to learn new things. I think we give up on that. I think we give up on setting goals and saying, okay, the possibilities of the universe are out there. I can do anything. And then reality sits in. We go to college, or we go to trade school, or go straight into the workforce. We get a family and all the normal stuff, and then all our goals kind of change. And I get that, but still, don't give up on your dreams. They're out there. It may be a slow process getting there. Maybe it's never too late to start. I think of Grandma Moses that started in her 90s painting, and now she's remembered within the art world. How many people will be remembered, really remembered? Unfortunately, and to a certain degree, I don't think it matters. I'd rather be on the heavenly roll than the earthly roll anyway, right? It seems like the great conquerors, or the great villains, or the people that ushered in great change, sweeping change, are remembered, but not everyone. And I don't think that should be a goal. That should probably be, for the historians to decide. Some people might have been famous at their time and fell out of favor and then came back into favor. Leonardo da Vinci, we can't fathom a world where Leonardo da Vinci was not known, but a lot of his words, due to the time he lived in, right, are written backwards, and then sort of like Galileo's, they're written in code, so he wouldn't be persecuted, because he worked on, the church said you don't defile the dead, and yet he worked on cadavers and stuff, much like in the back rooms, like Frankenstein. Could have been very well ostracized for that, with the thinking of the day. Salem could have been burned as a witch very early, Anyway, his writings had to come around and be found, and so that we would know a Da Vinci. I guess he was known in certain circles for his art, uh, but really it was his writings and his innovations of the tank and submarine, helicopter, things like that, that were visionary and far ahead of their time, that really put him above other artists. He was a master observer. Uh, so people may not even be remembered in their time, but later are remembered. How many of us, and here's a bad example, but an example nonetheless, Schindler from Schindler's List. 99.9% of us only know of him through that Spielberg movie. Yet what he did was incredible because he saved generations of people from being killed in World War II. Their lineage and their ripples of their family tree are still being found today simply because they were saved and are still alive. That man made a difference. He's barely remembered. But do we really need to be remembered to have significance? I say the nay. No, not really. Let, cast the lot and see what comes up. Throw the dice, you know. Within art circles, I know within fine art circles, it was like, want to be remembered, as a great artist. How do you do that? Get a universal message out there and that people respond to, and be good at what you do. Uh, there are plenty of great individuals that time marches on, right? Even some of the greatest of the great are tarnished over time. And I mean, just kind of merely shunted. They're not prescient. They're not now. They're not, quote, necessary. I don't go around every day thinking about Abe Lincoln. If I was writing a book or considering something, or like considering casting something in Civil War time, I'd be thinking a lot about Lincoln, probably. But by and large, we don't go around thinking about George Washington. Or can you name, and we can name our presidents, some of them, but can you name like major leaders of other countries? Probably not. I can remember, some big ones in the World War II era, because those are very trying times, like de Gaulle or, you know, Churchill. But by and large, we don't remember, you know, ones that, and so what country you're in has a bearing, right? Being remembered by those in your family, your loved ones, is more important than being remembered in history, said Shellhawk. I would totally agree. I would totally agree. If you line up things right and you do things right, you'll be remembered for all the right things and hopefully not the wrong things. Usually when somebody's on their deathbed, they remember the good things, even though 24/7, not all the things were good. We're all dysfunctional, you know. We don't treat each other with the respect that we would like to be treated always. I get it. Your patience wears thin, your day runs long. But, just be the very best you can be. And we need help with that. I have a guiding light. Hopefully you do too. But don't expect that out of everybody. You won't get it. Reality starts setting real quick, right? When you start dealing with people. People don't know how to communicate anymore. That's a problem. Not in the right ways. You talk to some of the young people and they're like, wow, he's trying to have a conversation with me. and they're awkward about it because they don't know how to communicate. This is their communication. It's sad but true. Dysfunctional is my middle name, yeah. Mighty Geek in the house. Hey, Mighty Geek. The Outer Limits, yeah. I believe I have all the Outer Limits. I have a file that has most of my DVDs pictured and in what box they're in, numbered. And I believe I have all the Outer Limits. I'm going to be watching those recently. I've seen little things and on YouTube that is, although nothing major, that makes me want to rewatch that again. In a lot of ways, it was a lot different than Twilight Zone at the time, and was ran about the same time, I guess. It ran shorter. It was shorter, but I think it was weirder in a way, you know. But I'm wanting to refresh myself. There was a remake in the 80s, I believe, of The Outer Limits. I kind of like using that because I want to push, when it comes to what I'm doing, to the limit of what, like I said earlier about challenging the format of what a book can look like. They used to have telescoping without going into it a lot. They used to have layered telescoping books. There's older books where the bindings are printed on. I would like to bring that into comics. And once we get enough material to do a hardback omnibus, thick enough where we could print on the, and then again, that's finding the right printer to be able to do that work. Not everybody can do that work, and it is expensive. But I'm wanting to make my mark on comics. And it's not just with messing with the format, doing quote, but I want to, I like challenging things. It's easy to do the easy things. More strictly sci-fi than Twilight Zone. I have all the Twilight Zones too. I've only watched the Outer Limits 2 at the most 3 times since I've had the collection. I'm not an authority. I'm more of an authority on the Twilight Zone stories because I know I remember those as a kid for sure. Twilight Zone, I'm not sure. Probably saw some of that. Didn't make the impact on me as a young viewer. I mean, in diapers, but and in subsequent reruns too. I saw Star Trek originally in my diapers, the original airing, not reruns. I saw a lot of this stuff. Get Smart. I saw the original run and Get Smart and Beverly Hillbillies and stuff like that. And I remember the openers of some shows, but certain details about the shows too. That's just the way my mind works. It took it in like a sponge. That was my window to the world, that TV box. Spent way too much time maybe taking in and not doing. Now I'm trying both, right? Action and the word put together. The Outer Limits was a little more intense than the Twilight Zone. Yeah, I think so. What is the 90s for the remake of Outer Limits? Well, they just like the Twilight Zone that had a movie, and then I think it had a remake. It was I don't think it was that. It did not strike the psyche like it did. Do you remember Night Gallery? Yes. I think I only had the first season of the Night Gallery though. They were offering at Walmart Night Gallery for $20, but I picked something else over it, which was more expensive at the time, so I didn't wind up getting it. Hopefully they still have it. I would love to pay $20 to get all the Night Galleries. I remember Night Gallery, but I also remember it not being as successful for him as it was, because all that type of stuff was new. By the 70s, it was sort of passe. It had been done. I'm not saying that stuff wasn't still effective. And I think now Night Gallery had a good run. It just wasn't the success for him as Twilight Zone was. Rickson remembers sitting in a squishy, dirty diaper watching TV till his brain rotted. Yeah. Yeah, these things made an impression on me. What can I say? You know, pop culture. You know, the stuff was entertaining. But yeah, that's if you really want to go conspiracy hat theory, you know, that's part of it, right? Sit in front of the boob tube, and that's why it was called the boob tube. And rot your brain. It wasn't as bad as it is today. Out and out, just blatant propaganda. Night Gallery was your favorite? Okay. Well, like I say, I've watched the very first, and it's interesting that was your favorite. Yeah, I would like to see the other subsequent seasons of Night Gallery again. I did watch it when it was first on TV. I probably saw the original Star Trek in black and white because that's all we had. You know, at some point we got a color TV, I think in the late 60s. You know, that was a big deal. I mean, I could sit and watch, and I can still do it because I do it binge watching. I've done it last night and today. I mean, that much at least last night, early into today, this morning, and today. Maybe a little bit too much yesterday because I was tired, and I don't want to be tired. I want to be refreshed to do this show every day. The show was truly scary, but I was 10 when I was watching it. Yeah. Yeah. I know Rodney McDowell was in the first one. It had to do with a painting, which is cool. All of them it was the Night Gallery, right? So they all had a painting that related to the story. Great premise. That's what I want to introduce. Great concepts, great premises, story premises into the stories. You see very little of that today. Like I said, I have, and I don't know if I'll totally accomplish that in one book, but I'll try my damnedest to indicate that I am a fairly decent artist, but even more so that I can write a good story, which is fairly newly discovered, I would say, since 2017 to me. I didn't really consider myself a writer, but I think, yes, all these things that have been through the years, if you're going, and I think that's where a lot of the crowdfunded books fail. You back the book, the story is meh, or the story is lousy, or serviceable. Comics are a luxury, and you're giving us creators, supposedly, right, the time to do the best work of our careers, or at least that's the way Ethan and others have kind of like, we're professionals, you know, that are just being canceled, and we're not on a monthly basis. These things should be big events, and they should be, I think. If you structure it right, and you have the money come in, if you have the projects that people demand, or maybe not demand, I don't know that people are demanding, I'm in a unique position because of the life I've lived. I couldn't be in comics. I could be. I could have been. Okay. I just never pulled the trigger till crowdfunding. And then I could see that it was a good vehicle, much like eBay, where you sell directly to the person. I could see it then that could work, and has worked. I'm in a unique position since I have collected so much over my life and still have it, and lost my first collection, but since then, really since 97, 25 plus years, whatever, since then, have rebuilt and lost. I mean, I've had a break-in, stuff damaged. I've had flood, different things occur. That's going to happen. Hopefully you keep them to a minimum, right? Spider in the Sink. Black and white shows require some imagination to watch. Well, I mean, not, yeah. I mean, I think some genres work best. Horror. I like the Hammer films. First time we got to see things in color like that, besides just one done movie. Well, I guess that's what they were giving us. Spider in the Sink, Statue in the Garden with Bill Bixby, The Little Old Lady in the Garden. So many great shows, yeah. Those are very short synopses, of course. Yeah. The one in the first season where she wants to see, she's blind, and she has an eye transference, but there's a blackout, and she thinks she's still blind and can't see. And her eyes only have about like 7 to 8 hours before she goes blind again. But she just wants to see something. I think she sees the sun coming up, and that's about it. Then she's blind again, just for a brief moment. It's a crazy story, but it talks about she's willing to take the eyes from another person and give them enough money, even though they'll be blind the rest of their life, to pay their debts or whatever. It's not a lot. I mean, but it shows you how desperate she is to see something, anything. And yet it doesn't, the irony of the piece, irony is not, there'll be a lot of irony with some of my stories. Hopefully Shadowhawk can feed the fire, and he has good ideals. He knows a good story when he sees it. He knows a bad story when he sees it. I want to make independent comics because that's all I'm going to be. That's what I enjoy best out of my collection. Although there's some great Marvel, there's some epic Marvel tales. To me, they're just stepping stones, though. And they've almost always, since I've wanted to do my own thing, since from dream to reality, I've already hit that with my ash can. I made it a reality. I made it something tangible. I made it something doable. And not just me, we all did it together. That's exciting to me. I will give you the very best of my life experience that I can give you and put it in print for you to hopefully read and treasure over the years. And to see, when you see, and I will use Abby as sort of like a metaphor. It's been one of the greatest pleasures of my life to see her grow and even grow old with her. Um, to see her come up from a very young puppy, and the years have went by far too quick. Far too quick. I'm like, wow. She's near and dear to my heart. And like I say, there's not a day that I don't think about what would I do without her. She's become that close to me. Part of my family, but immediate family. But again, I have to keep things in proper perspective. She's just a dog. And then again, she's a lot more than that to me. But, and I want the very best for her, just like I want the very best for you. Every day I show up here. To me, it is, there has to be greater reasons for me to do this every day. It's not just to show up and entertain, or you get some entertainment or some great conversations or meet some great people vicariously through this show, then great. And the other shows we do. With that said, I'm hoping to continue with the Garcia Lopez on the Feature Friday, on Friday's show, and have Mike Gustovich on just as soon as we can get I can set it up with him and get my artwork that he's sending me, and who knows what else, in the mail. And have an unboxing with the creator. Love you too, Shadowhawk. You know, you made this doable. I don't know that I would want to do this every day or could do this every day without you. The burden almost takes two. It's just me shouting in the dark, having a conversation with myself, and I have enough of those in my head. If there's nobody watching and there's nobody on here to bounce things off of and have a conversation with, I enjoy a good tale too, a good read. And I know there's a big selection of stuff out there that you could read. If I have a PhD, it's in one thing, and it's in comics. And that's served me well all my life, and sometimes not. It's a different type of thing. But I've always tried to feed the fire of my imagination and expand it and not be beat down by life, because life can beat you down. You can get your eyes off the prize and you can get beat down by life and circumstances. And some of you might be going through that now. I go through it as well. We're all in the same boat together. It may not seem like that, but none of us are truly alone. And I'm alone a lot. And that is okay. I've had to learn to live with that. Not everybody can live by themselves. And fortunately, I don't have to do it alone because I have you here every day, but I also have Abby. But there may come a day where I have neither, and I have to be able to live with myself. I met a lot of lonely people in prison. Not that I was incarcerated. Everybody asks me about that when I say that. But I've known people and worked with people that have been incarcerated and now are out. Occasionally I bump into them around town because they, come live here. This is a fairly prosperous area for the East Arkansas area. All the money of the state seems to be in the upper region where I'm at. The poor regions of Arkansas are down south of me. And the topography changes quite a bit. Like I've said before, there's oil derricks. We have a little bit of everything. And the only state to have diamonds as of yet. Who knows? Maybe one of these days somebody will discover a diamond in another state. But to this point of time, Arkansas is the only place where you can find diamonds and go dig for them. I've never done that. I would like to do that with my sister someday. Here pretty soon. I do want to have a blood test, and I have some reservations about checking my genetics, which they do. I don't want my blood just floating out there. I want it destroyed, after they're done checking it. I know that sounds paranoid, but I'd love the world to be inhabited by a million of me clones. But you know what? It's as much as from genetics, it's also environment. I grew up in a very good environment. One of the best, I think, consistent. And that's why I can do a lot of what I do. I couldn't do it otherwise. I don't think I would have been one to handle a lot of upheaval in my life and maybe come out as whole as what I am today. Rex once shot a man just for snoring in Minecraft. So many. Yeah, I mean, meeting my sister a couple years ago was a big event. Showed me another life, a path less taken, right? Or not taken. Kind of like a what if story. If I would have stayed with my mother, my birth mother, it wouldn't have been as good as life as what I've had. So I'm very grateful for the way my life's worked out. But I also know that some people, they went the other route and their lives wasn't that great. That's all right. We can all do better. And we can better ourselves. It just takes a little effort. It takes a little encouragement from others. And hopefully you can be an encouragement to somebody today. Somebody may need it. I know I need encouragement every day. When you live alone, you almost have to encourage yourself. And that's why, I've become, and I think to a certain degree, have been goal oriented and not forgotten. A lot of the stuff that we learned in the classroom and life has beat out of us or we've forgotten. I've tried not to forget those things. There's been a lot I have forgotten that perhaps I shouldn't, have so quickly thrown on the rubbish heap. There are a lot of things that I just tend to don't have space up here. Don't want to hold on to it. Shot a guy in the back because he had a mosquito on him. Yes. No, I prefer gas. I'll gas them. Hopefully I'll begin work again in April. Hopefully it'll be a better year. We still haven't had our Christmas party. Don't know if that's going to be. Trying to think if there's a time when we didn't have one. I know I missed a couple of them. I try and make every one of those. It's free food, right? I think I've earned at least a free meal every now and then, considering I do one of the, hardest jobs that they have, or maybe the hardest job. I would say the nay on that last comment. I would say the hardest job was what Larry did which was we had our day crew, which was basically two people quit. And he and another guy, thankfully, were kind of working daytime. I worked a little bit of daytime at the beginning, but working day and night, I don't want to do that. Because I have this and other things going on. I want to get out these books as quickly as possible so that we can get to some financial independence, you know, in a better financial suit and put out and work on the books. That's become a professional and do it full time. With that said, I still enjoy my nighttime job and I'll still continue that for a few years in the foreseeable future as I see. You can learn about that and so much more in time. Life book series. Yeah. Yeah, I enjoy working at VDCI. We've been bought out before, national or worldwide. Uh, it's just a means to an end. Most things are a means to an end. That may sound cynical, but forgive me. I've been watching James Bond, and he's kind of dispassionate. He has to be to have a license to kill. So sort of dispassionately and not think about it. I think to a certain degree, you have to be that way. Uh, not the killing part, but the be able to prioritize. Some people wear their emotions 24/7. Um, I don't think that's necessarily a healthy thing. Your emotions can mislead you. Uh, in an emergency situation, I think one of the best things is that I don't panic. I've been in some hair raising situations and nearly lost my life, but I've never panicked. And I think I'm still here today because I didn't panic. I remained calm and I did what needed to be done at the moment. Have you thought about making posters for your books? Um, can you kind of very quickly tell me what you mean by that? You mean like the covers being a poster or a poster in the book? I do know what Shadowhawk has said, posters and sort of the feedback I've heard from crowdfunding, and some are doing mini posters because they're easier to ship. People don't like folded posters. I know that was, I mean, to a certain degree, some of your larger folded posters have to be folded, of course. If it's going to be economical to send, it's a large poster like this Kong poster or this Charlie Chaplin, which is movie, or at least the Charlie Chaplin one is movie size. Those can be folded many times. They're large posters. Wall space, you got to take that into consideration. Uh, Not a lot of people have a lot of wall space. They have to. I'm not opposed to posters. Mighty Geek. I'm not opposed to posters, but I just wonder what you think about that. I do remember the Hot Shots. Got to roll them. Yeah. Yeah. Kind of like the flocked Salamandroid poster. That's probably the best thing to send them out in a tube. And, you can get thick tubes. It's hard to crush in the mail. So that could be a good option. I'm not opposed to that. It's not been a high priority because it's kind of a one and done. Unless you wanted to do a double poster, but that would drive people crazy, right? If you put, I'm doing that on trading cards, but you can put that in a transparent sleeve and see both sides. If you did that on a printed poster, you got to see one or the other. Unless you had a fold, that might be an interesting where it folds out. And the fold is right there, one image and another image. Maybe I need to give it more thought. In the 90s, there were posters in books and covers that doubled as posters. Yeah, and there was also like the Hot Shot books, or like the all Avenger posters, all X-Men poster books, where you could actually like take it apart into different posters. I never took mine apart, but you could take them apart and fold them out. A whole book of posters. And I think those probably were double printed, where you had to select the one image over the other if you took them apart. Um, that's a cool thing, pin-up type thing. Kind of did the pin-up thing out of necessity, of not telling all the Devil Flyer story in the ash can, and to introduce you to some of my initial characters like Silver Bow and Lady of the Night. Covers that doubled as posters, yeah, and where you had like fold out, that gets expensive. I've got a quad fold out just right around the corner, comic book, and anytime I see that comic book, I think I've got 3 copies. I think I bought them all at the same time, but I might have bought another one online. I don't know, but anytime I see that one, since it's so kind of unique, the front cover has a fold out and the back cover has a fold out. So you get this one big long image when you fold it all out. That's kind of unique. So anytime I get that at a reasonable price, say $1 or so, I pick it up because it's so neat. I could probably sell the book just by folding it out and showing you how neat that is. It's kind of a selling point for the book in my mind. Yeah, just wall space has been the main deterrent on posters at the moment. With that said, I've thought about mini poster, a mini poster that can ship, which could be larger because mine's going to be a magazine size. And the longer I think on it, it being the flagship character or momentum, and to be different in format from all the other books that's going to come later, I'm thinking of, and we'll see. We'll get more feedback on it after it's printed and in your hands. If you like the magazine format, we'll take poll or whatever. I think everybody will like the magazine size. I want it to fit in well with others' collection. I know that that doesn't need to be that much of a deciding factor, but it needs to be something you think about. And I have thought about it as a collector. I think some people that do comics don't think about the collecting side that much, and some think about it too much, producing things that people don't really want. Anyway, I want to produce things that you want to see, that you want to use, like magnets. Amanda B said, I like magnets because they have a use. You can put them on your refrigerator or your laptop, or I don't really recommend putting magnets around your computers, but to each his own. Some people do on the lid, on the monitor, back of the monitor. I want things that people can use. Some people like stickers. I don't think any stickers really retain that much value. There might be some puffy stickers from the 70s that might have acquired some value. I think I still have some that survived my fire, like some Ninja Turtle puffy stickers and things that might be worth a little bit something. I don't think stickers by and large, are valuable. It's just a neat thing, neat, cheaper item to be able to customize and use and stick on something, that you might want to stick it on. Magazine size is cool, but you have to be aware of price to print. Yeah. And whether you use Uline or what is it? The other to ship with, Gemini mailer. It'll have to be a larger, but the larger size also, which is European size. and is standard over in Europe. So it's, if we really get this thing rolling and we can make it cost effective, just simply because of the size, it may sell better over in Europe. I like the magazine format, and I think for this project, and I called it a one shot because at that time, not that it's just going to be one and done. Au contraire, that was never the thing, but just call it one and done because one shot because I did not know about the format, if it's going to change yet or not. But I'm leaning towards keeping it a magazine, sort of and then possibly it could change formats. I'm not opposed to that either. I like, in theory, what DC was doing with Adventure Comics. They did a radical thing. They went from regular comic book size to digest. With the digest size, they could do 100 pages. Most of it in their big archive of stuff of reprint. But they had, I think, one or two, and they kind of did that with their 100 pagers that they put out in Walmart a few years ago. Most of it was reprint, but they had 2 stories, I think. And I think they might have expanded on that, on the new material over time. It's been so long, I can't remember exactly how they did it with the digest, although I have all of them. From 493 to 503. And then they canceled it. How cool would it have been if they would have went back to magazine size or regular size, which with the second series they did. They just picked up the title. But if they'd done it immediately and put some other thing that actually was hot at the time in the book, because it's an anthology, could have been anything. They lost that fact, and they had one of their oldest titles canceled after 500 issues, 503 issues. That's crazy to me. Absolutely asinine, stupid, crazy to cancel one of your longest running titles. That's like if Spawn just gives up on Spawn, the main title, and goes with maybe the rest of the Spawn universe. Why stop it? Make it good. And even Spawn might be harder to make good than an anthology. An anthology can be anything. I know it had lead stories like Dial H for Hero there toward the end, or it could be Superman. It could be one character in the whole book. But I mean, it had that anthology format for the longest in most of its history. They just forgot what they had or didn't appreciate it. But so could Devil Flyer or one of my titles go from like regular size to digest, or magazine size to regular size, or maybe Golden Age size to Silver Age size to, I'm here to make history with some of those. Maybe we'll have a title that will be magazine size, Golden Age size, Silver Age size. And really, you could go Silver Age size again, because there were a couple different. But there were no standard sizes, even in Golden Age, depending on who published them. I've seen all sizes. There was kind of a standard size, okay? I will give you that for most of the books, but not all of them. Like I say, I've seen some Golden Ages that were regular size, which were quite small, because they hadn't even been published yet. I mean, come around as the standard yet. Standard, normal, current size. But you could do digest, you could do hardback, all in the same series. But see, storing that all together, a little odd. That's why it hasn't been done. I don't want to do something just because it's odd. I want to do something because it's innovative. And you got to think about these things. And if there's one thing I do, it's think. Lots of thinking. That's why you get the gray. With magazine size, you can draw at 8.5 at 11. Yeah. Magnets, yeah. Stickers are still okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I did it out of necessity this time, but I may stay with it. We'll see about the shipping, and can we remain at that size? I think so. I don't think there'll be a problem with that. If I'm not selling it, I want to get the price of the book down. My attempt at that will be with my next project, which will be the John Buscema book, which will be very affordable. And I think that's why everybody's going to want to get it for one reason. That, and it's unseen Buscema artwork that's never been published anywhere. These Conan pages in this form have never been published. Signed. That art, this in this particular form, these here are mostly Conan, Savage Sword of Conan pages from like issue 201 to 226, the last issue. So early 90s stuff. Do have some Avenger pages, like Fantastic Four 2099. Remember the 2099 titles? But yeah, with Devil Flyer printed in magazine size, it had to be, because he drew it at regular comic book size. I don't know if this is a regular comic book because it's a Bronze Age, but I imagine it is. It's coverless. It looks like it. Magazine size is more like this here. So you're getting that much more. That's that much more to ship, but it also gives you this much more space to ship bigger, neater things into, like a larger print if you wanted to do a print. Check our options. We'll do the right thing. But I do like the ideal that not that many people in crowdfunding are doing that large format. I know Roach Balls did, but Roach Balls, my one criticism of that is it has about a half an inch taller than what standard size is. It's an odd size. So again, it fits sort of oddly, and maybe that's what he wanted. Okay. In your collection. You have to get a special boarding bag for it. You can't really, it's just an odd size. I don't want to do odd sizes unless I do want to do odd sizes. And that's not in my, not in the near future in my thinking. I want it to sit well in everybody's collection. We had to do it in magazine size because the artwork was done so small. Keep that into account when you read it and then you look at the artwork, that it was drawn this size minus printing border, which made it even smaller. And still he came out was able to design a wonderful story that has scale to it. I don't know that I could have done it, and I'm used to drawing small. Because you have to draw so small, to get full figures and action and stuff going in. It's not a big place but once it's blown up, and I've already seen that it blows up perfectly fine in print. I already have a magazine, the Ash Can, showed me that it would be fine blown up. Anyway, so is this going to be a one shot in magazine format? Maybe, but I'll probably keep it. I like the idea of the first flagship. Will it change format later? I don't know. But yeah, Mighty Geek's right. You have to kind of look at the cost. I think the cost will be fine. Chet and Jetty is doing all magazine size stuff on his size on his stuff. Really gorgeous painted work. Yeah. See, that affords more space, affords more opportunity, I think. And, I want it to lay out nicely. From the prototype of the Ash Can, I think it will. That wasn't a 48 pager, but I don't think a 48 pager will be much different than that. I think for this project, magazine size and bigger's better, Anyway, I'm going to get out of here. I could blather on forever, but I'm not going to. I will try a test stream. Can't tell you what time. Appreciate you wanting to come on Shadowhawk if I do it here pretty soon before bedtime, but I probably won't. Probably stick to about 10 o'clock bedtime for the broadcast, but I may not. I've got nothing better to do, but yeah, I don't know. I want to get back to just kind of getting centered in what I, need to accomplish. What do I really need to do? And for right now, what I need to do is sign off and go over and see my mother and get Abby sort of active and her go with me and us get out of the house for a minute and then come back and fix something to eat. And then we'll see about what the future holds. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll try and do better in all points, in broadcasting and in publishing. We strive for a spirit of excellence around here, although it doesn't always appear like that. Anyway, keep collecting